The long-awaited return. The golden light of a Virginia sunset poured over the quiet suburban street, casting long, haunting shadows across the familiar driveway of 247 Maple Street. Marine Sergeant Jack Morrison stood frozen at the edge of the driveway, his duffel bag hanging heavily from his shoulder. It had been 3 years since he'd last walked this path, 3 long years that had felt like a lifetime. He was no longer the fresh-faced young man who had left for deployment, but a seasoned Marine who had endured the trials and sacrifices of war. Yet, despite the distance of time and the hardships he'd faced, his heart was pulled back to the one thing that had kept him grounded during his absence: thunder. Jack's mind swirled with memories of the last day he had seen his dog. Thunder had been just a playful, clumsy 8-month-old German Shepherd puppy then, full of energy, chewing on everything in sight, and endlessly chasing after Jack's boots. The young dog was the embodiment of a loyal companion, the kind who would follow Jack anywhere, from the backyard to the deepest trenches of a battlefield. When Jack received his deployment orders, it had been one of the hardest decisions of his life. He had to leave his family, his home, and the dog he considered more than just a pet. Thunder was family. Now, as Jack stood at the gate, waiting for the familiar creak of its rusted hinges, he wondered if Thunder would even recognize him. It had been so long. The dog had grown from an enthusiastic puppy into a strong and dependable protector, but the question lingered. Would his dog still remember the man who had once been his whole world? The autumn breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves and rain, the earth underneath Jack's boots crunching with each step. It was a familiar sound, but today it felt different, heavier, as if each step was leading him into the unknown. Jack's eyes swept over the yard. His mother's pride and joy, the flower beds, the carefully tended lawn. It all seemed almost surreal, like he had never left. Yet everything had changed. The oak tree that had stood sentinel by the corner of the yard now had bare branches, reaching toward the dusky sky, an unwelcome reminder that time had continued to move without him. The house stood quiet, still, as if holding its breath. The porch light flickered on automatically, responding to the gathering darkness, its soft glow illuminating the front door. Jack had installed that light sensor himself, just weeks before he left. The subtle hum of the light as it clicked on seemed to echo louder now than ever before, as if welcoming him home, even as Jack's heart pounded with uncertainty. With every step, memories rushed to the surface. The sound of Thunder's bark echoing in the yard, his happy wagging tail, the moments of training in the backyard, where Jack had shown Thunder the basics. It had been their special place, where Jack could always feel safe, knowing his dog was by his side. "Thunder," Jack whispered, his voice rough and filled with longing. He wasn't sure why he whispered. It felt as if the words themselves would make the moment real, solidify the reunion he so desperately needed. His footsteps slowed as he neared the porch, his eyes scanning the quiet house. And then, just as the last light of the setting sun kissed the horizon, a sound cut through the stillness. A deep, thunderous bark that sent a shiver through Jack's spine. His breath caught in his throat, the bark so powerful it seemed to shake the very air around him. His heart skipped a beat as a massive figure emerged from around the corner of the house, the unmistakable shape of a German Shepherd. Thunder was no longer the gangly puppy Jack remembered, but a full-grown, powerful dog. His muscular frame, taut with energy, was a testament to years of training and loyalty. Jack froze, his body going rigid with the intensity of the moment. Thunder's eyes locked on his, unblinking and unwavering. The dog's ears were fully erect, his posture straight and alert. In that instant, Jack was no longer sure what to expect. Thunder had been his constant companion, his source of comfort through long, lonely nights on the battlefield. But now, standing face to face with the dog after so many years, Jack's instincts as a Marine kicked in. He read the dog's body language carefully. Something was off. Thunder's growl rumbled from deep within his chest, low and menacing. His lips curled back, revealing his sharp teeth. Jack's heart raced as his mind worked quickly. Was this a mistake? Had Thunder forgotten him? For a moment, Jack wondered if the reunion he had longed for was about to go terribly wrong. Thunder's growl grew louder, his body tense with restrained aggression as he took several measured steps forward. The dog's movements were precise, calculated, and the air between them seemed to thrum with the tension of a battle yet to come. Jack's mind raced. He had trained Thunder for so long. He had taught him the difference between friend and foe. But would the bond they shared be enough to break through this moment of uncertainty? The unspoken connection. The cool autumn air carried the rich scent of fallen leaves as Jack lay on the ground. Thunder's powerful form sprawled on top of him. The dog's licks were a constant barrage, frantic and full of joy, as if trying to erase the years they had been apart. Jack laughed, the sound mingling with the happy growls of his dog, his eyes closing for a moment as the weight of the past 3 years seemed to lift. "Thunder, you've grown up, buddy," Jack whispered through his laughter, his voice raw with emotion. Thunder's body shook as he pressed closer, his tail wagging with such force that Jack could feel the vibrations beneath him. He wasn't sure how long they stayed there, tangled together in the grass, but time seemed to stop in those precious moments. Every lick, every nudge from Thunder was a silent testament to the bond that had never truly been broken. As the dog pulled away slightly, Jack could see his mother and younger sister, Emma, standing on the porch. They had been watching the reunion unfold, their faces filled with tears. Sarah, Jack's mother, stood in the doorway, her hand pressed to her mouth, trying to contain the flood of emotion. Emma, now 17 and nearly as tall as Jack had been before he left, stood beside her, a soft smile playing across her lips as she wiped tears from her eyes. Jack finally sat up, pushing himself slowly to his feet as Thunder stayed glued to his side, his watchful eyes never leaving Jack's face. There was an intensity in Thunder's gaze that Jack couldn't quite place, something more than just the joy of reunion. It was as though the dog was checking him, making sure that he was truly there and not just some figment of his imagination. "Hey, Mom," Jack called softly, his voice catching. "It's really me." Sarah didn't wait for another word. She rushed down the steps, crossing the yard quickly and pulling Jack into a tight embrace, her arms wrapped around him with a strength that Jack had never quite expected. He held his mother close, feeling the comforting warmth of her body after so many years of being away. "Jack, oh my goodness, I can't believe it." Sarah's voice broke as she spoke, her hands moving to his face, as though to make sure this wasn't a dream. "You're finally home." "I'm home, Mom," Jack whispered, his heart swelling. His eyes moved to Emma, who was now by his side, hugging him tightly. "I missed you so much, big brother," Emma said, her voice full of a maturity that Jack hadn't expected. The girl he had left behind had grown into a young woman, and the years of his absence had clearly shaped her in ways he hadn't anticipated. Emma pulled back, looking up at him with a mixture of awe and excitement. "I can't believe you're here." Jack smiled through the lump in his throat. "I know, Em. It's been way too long." The reunion was full of tears, laughter, and heartfelt words, but through it all, Jack couldn't ignore the persistent presence of Thunder. The dog stayed by his side, his posture still alert, his eyes darting between Jack and the family, as though he were keeping watch. Every now and then, Thunder would nudge Jack's leg with his nose, as if reminding him he was still there, still needed. Jack patted the dog's head with affection, but something about Thunder's behavior made him pause. There was a deep, almost anxious energy in the dog that Jack hadn't expected. When the family moved toward the house, Thunder followed closely, but he kept looking back, checking that Jack was still right behind him. His ears would twitch at every sound, and his eyes never lost their sharp focus. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that Thunder was more than just excited to see him. There was a purpose in his every movement. The family gathered around the dinner table, and Jack marveled at the familiar sights. The warmth of his mother's cooking, the laughter of Emma filling the room, and the smell of apple pie wafting from the kitchen. Everything felt like it was falling into place again, but there was still something unusual about Thunder's behavior. The dog refused to leave Jack's side, positioning himself between Jack's chair and the kitchen door. Every now and then, Thunder would press his nose against Jack's leg, his body tense with some unspoken alertness. "Thunder's been acting strange lately," Sarah said as she served Jack an extra helping of mashed potatoes. "More on edge, more focused, almost as if he knew you were coming home before we got your call." Jack looked at his mother, taking in her words as he scratched behind Thunder's ears. "More focused, huh?" He noticed the dog's tense muscles and the way his eyes were constantly scanning the room, always alert, even when the rest of the family seemed at ease. It's like he knew Mom, like he had a feeling. Emma, who was always observant, chimed in, "Yeah. He started doing perimeter checks around the yard again, remember? He stopped doing that about a year after you left, but lately he's been really vigilant, like he's guarding the house again, like he used to do when you were here." Jack nodded slowly, watching Thunder. The dog's energy wasn't simply about excitement for his return. It was something more. It was as though Thunder had been carrying a weight, a responsibility, throughout Jack's absence. The thought gnawed at Jack, but he pushed it aside, focusing instead on the warmth of the moment, the laughter, and the familiarity of being home. As dinner came to an end, and the family settled in for the evening, Thunder's unusual behavior persisted. The dog led Jack out of the house, moving with a quiet intensity. The unexpected revelation. As the night wore on, the quiet of the suburban yard felt heavier, and Jack could no longer ignore the urgency in Thunder's behavior. The dog's insistence on checking every corner of the yard, his eyes scanning every movement, and the way he kept returning to the same spot near the old toolshed, all of it weighed heavily on Jack's mind. The sound of the wind rustling through the trees was a constant in the background, but Thunder's focus was sharper than ever. He continued to dig at the ground near the corner, his paws working with a frantic energy Jack had never seen in him before. The dog's whines grew louder, more desperate, almost as if he was trying to tell Jack something important, something that had been buried in this very yard, right under their feet. "Thunder, stop," Jack said, his voice calm but firm as he knelt beside the dog, gently pulling at his collar to halt the relentless digging. "What is it, boy?" Thunder froze for a moment, looking up at Jack with those intelligent eyes, as if understanding every word. Then, just as quickly, he resumed his digging, his paws moving faster now, his snout buried deep in the earth. Jack's heart raced as the scene unfolded before him. This wasn't just excitement over his return. There was something else at play here. The sound of footsteps approaching interrupted Jack's thoughts. Sarah's voice called out from the back door, her concern evident. "Jack, honey, you must be exhausted. Why don't you get some rest? Everything else can wait until tomorrow." But Jack couldn't tear himself away. He knew something wasn't right. Thunder's behavior was more than just a dog's greeting. It was a sign, a warning. The dog had been acting strangely for weeks, more vigilant, almost anxious, ever since Jack had received word of his return. It wasn't just excitement. It was as if Thunder knew something was going to happen, something big. "Not yet, Mom," Jack called back softly, never breaking eye contact with the dog. "There's something here. I need to figure this out." Thunder's digging grew more frantic, his body trembling with the intensity of his focus. Jack, though tired and sore from the long journey home, felt a strange sense of urgency. Something told him that Thunder had been protecting more than just the house during the past few weeks. The dog had been guarding something. Jack gently moved the dirt that Thunder had unearthed, his hands trembling with anticipation. A sudden metallic glint caught his eye. It was small at first, barely visible under the soil, but as Jack cleared away more dirt, it became clear. It was a small weathered box. Jack's breath caught in his throat as he carefully lifted the box from the earth, Thunder standing by his side, his gaze never leaving the object. The box was old, the edges frayed, the wood damp with moisture. It looked like something that had been forgotten, buried for years. Jack turned the box over, and his heart skipped a beat when he saw the faint engraving on the top. It was his name, his full name, carved into the wood, along with a series of numbers. A chill ran down Jack's spine as he realized that this was something from his past, something that had been hidden away, perhaps even for his own protection. "Mom. Emma." Jack called urgently, his voice suddenly louder. "Get out here." Within seconds, Sarah and Emma were at his side, their faces filled with concern. Jack held up the small box, his mind racing. "This was here all along," he murmured, his voice shaking slightly. "Thunder knew about it. He's been protecting this." "What is it?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. She reached out to take the box, but Jack pulled it back slightly, his eyes scanning the engraving. The numbers seemed familiar, but he couldn't place them. He ran his fingers over the surface, the sensation strange, almost surreal. "It's something from my past," Jack said quietly, staring at the box as though it might hold answers to questions he'd never even known to ask. "I didn't know it was here. It was hidden all this time." Emma stepped forward, curiosity written all over her face. Jack hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "Yeah, let's see what's inside." With trembling hands, Jack opened the box. Inside, there was a collection of old photographs, yellowed with age. Most of them were pictures of Jack from his early days in the Marine Corps, images of him with his fellow soldiers, some from his deployment, and others from the training grounds. But as Jack carefully flipped through the photographs, one stood out, an image of him and Thunder, taken just before he left for deployment. Thunder was still a puppy then, and the bond between them was unmistakable. He had forgotten about this photo, but Thunder hadn't. Beneath the photographs, there was a small folded piece of paper. Jack opened it slowly, his hands shaking. The words on the paper were simple but powerful. "For the one who never gave up on me. Keep this close. Thunder will always be there when you need him." Jack's chest tightened as he read the note, his throat closing up with emotion. It was from one of his commanding officers, someone who had known Jack's bond with Thunder. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, when Jack thought he had nothing left, Thunder had always been there, waiting, protecting. And now, the dog had kept the memory of their bond alive, buried in the yard, guarding it as he had guarded Jack's heart. Thunder, sensing that the mystery had been solved, sat down beside Jack, his eyes bright and calm now. His job was done. He had protected the secret, and now his mission was complete. Jack wiped away the tears that had come unbidden to his eyes. "You kept it safe, didn't you, boy?" he whispered, his voice filled with awe. Thunder wagged his tail gently, nuzzling into Jack's side. Content. In that moment, Jack realized that Thunder's vigilance wasn't just about keeping him safe. It was about something deeper. The dog had always known, somehow, that Jack would return. He had carried the weight of Jack's absence with him, waiting, protecting, until his partner came home. As the family gathered around, Jack stood tall, holding Thunder close. They had been separated by time and distance, but now, in the soft light of the Virginia evening, they were reunited. And whatever came next, they would face it together. This story brings the mystery to a resolution, highlighting the bond between Jack and Thunder as something deeper than just a dog and his owner. It's a story about loyalty, protection, and the unspoken connection that lasts no matter the distance or time apart. The unexpected revelation of the hidden box and its contents adds an emotional layer to the reunion, making it even more poignant. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.